Hi, friends. Welcome to tonight's live chat. It's good to see you guys starting off in the chat box. It's good to see you also. I hope you had a less stressful week. I feel like life is stressful as it is, so you're not going to have a work week that's without stress, but hopefully it wasn't a lot. I find myself thinking of, oh God, Jessica J. She always comes on here and she's like, this was a bad week, So hopefully tonight's live chat will kind of not lighten your mood, but hopefully tonight's live chat will give you some answers to a very complex and tricky and triggering concept. Everything looks good on my end, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump in. No social media issues as of yet, which is good. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started in tonight's live chat. I want to know, let's start off with kind of like, I'm going to have you guys start this off because you know how I usually do. I explain and then I give you an introduction and then I pick and pull things apart. We're still going to do that. But let me ask you, for those who are on here tonight, who knows the movie Mommy Dearest? Give me like a raised hand. Give me like I saw this back in whatever date time. How many of you know the movie Mommy Dearest? How many of you also know that the movie Mommy Dearest turned into or eventually became an actual book? So I will post I was just talking about you, Jessica J. You're going to have to play this over and listen to what I was saying about you. But for those who are interested, I will post the link in the comments section once we sign off tonight of the book, Mommy Dearest, because there's some interesting pieces to this. And I think a lot of us, we look at the movie Mommy Dearest and we say, no, my mom was nothing like that. Or we may look at it and say, well, my mother was a little bit shaky, but she wasn't necessarily Joan Crawford. She wasn't really that Mommy Dearest personality. And so let me point it out that the Mommy Dearest character kind of transforms for the benefit of entertainment. So some of what you're seeing in that movie is an exaggeration. Some of it is a little bit of a stretch. Some of it is probably, according to some critics, poor memory, and just this perpetuation of the cultural concepts of the time. We're going to talk about this in a minute here. If you had a mother that mimicked the Mommy Dearest mother, something was clearly going to be wrong within the family and even you. We've kind of transformed over time to believe that, okay, you can have a mother like this, and she may not have all the characteristics of the mother from the movie, but she can fit a variety of other criteria or characteristics that can make her very similar to the mother. We also know in today's society that you can have a refrigerator mother. We're going to talk about that a little bit. You can have what we call cold mother syndrome. We're going to bring that up in a little bit here. You can have a situation that involves that, and you can escape, unharmed. You may be the most quote unquote normal of the family, because that just happened to be your makeup as an individual, But when we think about moms, we think about positive things, right? We think about, Mother's Day and hearts and flowers and chocolates and appreciate you, Mom, love you, thank you for sacrificing for us, thank you for this, thank you for that. We often think of those things, right? But not every mother, and you will know this on this channel, if nowhere else on YouTube, that not every mother is a good mother. And you guys know that. Not every mother is a good mother. And I'm not talking about the moms who question if they're good. I'm not talking about the moms who have tons of anxiety or maybe depressed and can't really be a mother, right? We're not talking about that group. We're talking about a segregated group of mothers who should have never, ever thought of becoming a mom, whether that's through adoption, fostering, or biological. And I truly believe that you can have, as we're going to talk about in tonight's live chat, You can have a very wounded, severely wounded mother, adopted, foster, biological, and their woundedness, either intentionally or unintentionally, affects you, impacts you, turns your life around, confuses you, you know? And that is the sad part about mothers. We hold mothers so, so dear. And we even hold them dear in research. There's not a lot of research on mothers who do damage to their children growing up, and then sometimes continue to do damage as the child grows into an adult. So you may be the adult child of a mother who's very, very detrimental to your mental and emotional health. And we don't have a lot of research on that. We do have, briefly before I jump into the facts of this, but we do have some research on mothers who have bipolar disorder that is uncontrollable. And there's a lot of swinging from really depressed to really manic, and really low key, and not really feeling good, and being irritable and angry. And then they swing over this way, and now they're happy and wonderful and believe they can fly. So we do have research on the impact of mothers that have bipolar disorder. We also have research on the impact of borderline personality disorder when it comes to mothers, that rocky roller coaster relationship style they can sometimes have, the impulsivity and the impulsive language of I'm going to kill myself, or I'm going to cut myself, right? Being very emotionally reactive and not being able to pump the brakes before they say or do something that can harm the child, right? So we have research on mothers with borderline personality disorder. We also have research on mothers who have post-traumatic stress disorder, so PTSD. We don't have a lot of research, though, on mothers who have complex PTSD. So we don't really know what that looks like in that particular group. So that's an area of research that needs to kind of step it up a little bit. But we do have some research on mothers who have post-traumatic stress disorder and how that can interfere with the parent-child bond in infancy, how it can kind of disrupt the natural relationship between child and parent in early childhood. But we're lacking a lot of information. And so for those adults like you guys watching this live chat tonight, for those adults who feel they have a mother who is a cold, callous, mommy dearest mother, the research is not there for you to be able to just go online and say, you know what, I'm going to look at that research study. A lot of the topics that I do have on this channel come directly from my clinical experience and research. So you are getting a lot of research from me. But when it comes to this topic, I really had to pull together something we call quantitative and qualitative. So quantitative data is the numbers, the research, the trials that have been done, the studies, the critics who have reviewed the Mommy Dearest book and movie. And then I also brought together the qualitative, meaning looking at personal accounts of people who I've spoken to and dealt with and treated, and just things online that you can find of people's personal experience of having a mommy dearest mother. So that's what you're going to get in tonight's live chat. Let me jump in, guys, to what I mean by mommy dearest mother. Okay, let's talk about this. There are often three things that is at the core of a mommy dearest mother, and research backs this up. We actually call it cold mother syndrome. Cold mother syndrome. There's often abandonment at some form, at some level. So abandonment may be physical, it may be emotional. So there's abandonment. There's also abuse, right? It could be all forms of abuse: psychological, emotional, physical, sexual abuse, family abuse, family violence, feeling interrogated and disregarded and devalued in your family. So abuse. Then there's also poverty. Isn't that interesting? Poverty and uncertainty, they seem to go hand in hand when we're talking about the core of a mommy dearest parent. Just kind of think about it here with me for a little bit. You have this mother who's very mean, cold, unemotional. Or maybe you have a mother who is emotional, but she's over the top emotional, and she destabilizes your world because she's unstable herself. So technically we're talking about those kind of parents tonight. One who is cold, careless, and doesn't care, and the other one who is very emotional, but too emotional for her to raise you in a healthy way, right? And maintain that relationship with you as you grow and you become an adult over time. So abandonment happens when that emotionally destabilizing parent, that mother, does something that puts this internalized fear on the inside of you that she's not coming back. She may not love me as much as I thought. She doesn't hug me like my friends' parents hug my friends. Mom puts everything else before me. And you can be an adult thinking this way as well. She puts her men before me. She puts her dating life before me. She puts her work before me. She puts looking good to the neighbors before me. And then I am last on the list, you know? And so abandonment, that can stick with you. Abuse, that's the next one. It can very much stick with you, right? We know that one, so I'm not going to go over that one. Poverty and uncertainty. Poverty is what the movie Mommy Dearest kind of touched on a little bit, because what's happening is you've got this woman who's adopted a child who's unstable, but her childhood was unstable. And so there's a lot of psychological and emotional traumas that can happen if you live in a state of poverty. You don't have food like you need to. You may be, really dealing with scarce supplies of food, right? I had a family one time back in 2019 when I first started in private practice. It was a year after. And I remember taking on this family, and the first thing I saw was, number one, a cold-hearted mother. She was not attached to her children emotionally. It's almost like her own abusive and traumatizing history blocked her communication between she and her children, and I ended up having to tell her that. But this mom, I remember providing not only therapeutic services, but getting her a case manager and a service coordinator, trying to get her hooked up to programs and school programs and, different things that she needed to raise her kids. Because what was happening to her children is they're going to school dressed in basically rags, right? They didn't always have water, so they weren't clean all the time. They didn't have a lot of food, so the family was a little bit on the thinner side in terms of weight. There were a lot of eating disorders in that family, from the sister to the brother to the uncle and the niece and the cousins, because this was a family of poverty. And so, when you kind of hit rock bottom, that takes a huge toll on your mind, and it can be traumatizing depending on the places you have been. And so this was kind of the foundation of the movie of Mommy Dearest. Crawford didn't have the one who played Mommy Dearest. She didn't have all the things available to her. And so that kind of caused her to be in a little bit of a sick, unstable, crazy, pathological state of mind over time. Now, you guys are probably wondering, what in the world is cold mother syndrome? It's really a term. It's not a clinical term. It's a term that people have used to describe a lack of emotional warmth within a mother. It's not having that warmth on the inside that says, when I see my child cry, I'm going to go comfort him or her. Have you ever seen parents, they reach for their babies and they're bouncing them and they're patting them and they're saying, it's okay, mommy's here, right? Comfort. It's a very simple thing. But for cold mothers, it is not a simple thing. A piece of the puzzle is this, that a cold mother may not even pick up her child, right? May not even bond with them. A baby has to have constant stimulation, touching and doing hair and washing, right? Grooming, loving the child, putting the child in a swing, feeding the child, teaching the child, right? All of those processes we kind of take for granted, but that's what kind of builds that child into an actual 5, 6, 7-year-old, right? A 13-year-old, a 20-year-old. You've got to have that stimulation, but a cold-hearted mother doesn't have that. There's a lot of insecurity, and there's a fostering of insecure attachment with these kind of mothers. The cold mother syndrome says there's a fostering. I'm going to repeat it because it's pretty impactful. It's a fostering of insecure attachment. So you've got a mother who's unstable. She's not emotionally attached to you. She can very much care less about you, right? Or she does things that's intentionally intimidating or manipulative or triangulating, right? Whether you're a child or an older adult child. And the fostering of insecure attachment happens when she kind of builds this wall between the two of you. And she kind of fosters that wall between the two of you. Go talk to your grandmother because I don't want to deal with this. Go ask your dad because I don't know what to tell you, right? I know you guys have probably heard that before. Another thing you may have heard of before would be something like, look, I'm going to find you a therapist because I can't deal with this. You're starting to weigh on me. And I'm not here for you to weigh on me. So I think you need a therapist and I'm going to help you find one. It's that wall going up, it's like, I can't emotionally engage. So I'm going to build a wall between us. And so that fosters that insecure attachment, which is really what it sounds like. You develop insecurities over time when it comes to love, when it comes to attachment, when it comes to relational interactions with other people. You have these internal insecurities of, can I do this? Do I really want this? Well, what if he finds out about who I really am? Or what if she finds out about who I really am, right? All of that is insecurity. And so a cold mother, callous mother, can foster insecure attachment over time. And sometimes it's intentional. Get away from me, go outside and play, I once heard a mother say, I rather work 8 to 20 hours a week than to be at home with my child, and those are horrible things to say, right? Now, for those of you who are adults and you look back on your childhood and you say, you know what? I had a mommy dearest mother. I had a cold mother. I think she may have cold mother syndrome. You really do want to look at the fact that in these kind of relationships, there's what we call a constant power struggle. There's a constant power struggle, and there's possible competition and jealousy between you and the mom. And especially if you're a female, it gets even worse when you're a female. And the constant power struggle is your awareness that you haven't been treated right. And mom is on the other side saying, I don't know what you're talking about because I was the best mom I could be for you. Some even come right out and say, I wasn't a perfect mother, but I certainly didn't abuse you, when there's abuse all over the situation, right? And so there's a constant power struggle between your reality and that mother's fantasy, because a lot of cold, callous, unemotional, and detached mothers, they don't have a look at reality that is healthy. So their reality is skewed. Their moods actually shifts. Their thoughts shifts all the time. And they are extreme shifts. We're not talking about 1 minute I'm down, next minute I'm laughing. We're talking about for the next month, I'm a mean, cold-hearted mother, right? And then we can swing back over to, for 2 months, I'm a great mom. And what does that cause for you guys? It causes what we call a traumatic bond or cognitive dissonance, where you can't marry those two perceptions of this cold-hearted mother. 1 minute she's nice, next minute she's mean, another minute she's angry, and tomorrow she'll be talking to me like nothing ever happened. With these kind of moms, we do have to keep in mind, and I'm going to go to the chat box. With these kind of moms, we have to keep in mind that they also have issues that are deep-seated. This is not to give them a pass, because there's no excuse for being a horrible mother. But there are some mothers who, at the core of who they are, at the core of their pathology, their sickness of mind, is trauma, abuse, and fear of abandonment. And what happens with these kind of mothers often is their short-term healthy defense, and that's in quotation marks, short-term healthy defense is to put up protective barriers, is to keep their walls high, is to stay separate from you emotionally and psychologically as much as she can, and to cater to her own emotional needs while she's taking all the oxygen from you. In a sense, these kind of mothers, like the mommy dearest mother, they have their own psychological battles. And it's not just extreme shifts in mood and thought. It's, I am dangerous, and I am dangerous emotionally to my adult child, my child. I am dangerous physically because I can also lash out or attack my child or adult child. And I'm also relationally dangerous because I may say some things over here. I may say some things over there to Bob. I may go this way and say some things to the neighbor, and they're going to develop a totally different view of you than you thought. And so, in a sense, this kind of a mom can turn people against you. And that is the sneakiest, dirtiest thing, but it does happen all the time. There's often masked mental health challenges. So they've got them out the wazoo, right? But they put up a mask, remember, and their walls go high, that it's hard to see it. So if somebody with an unbiased view of the movie Mommy Dearest steps in to watch that movie, eventually they may say, okay, something's really wrong with this mother. She should have never adopted a child. But if you're not coming at it from that lens, you can kind of think that the so-called Mommy Dearest role, she was competitive. She wanted everything to be perfect. She really flipped out when things were out of order or not organized or not the way that she acts for them to be. A lot of people are like that, right? And so you can kind of look at that character and say, well, it's not really absurd. And a lot of people say that, but here's what the key is. These kind of mothers mask their problems, and they know how to do it. The only time their problems are viewed is often when they get into therapy, they put the child in therapy, or they're in it themselves, or something really happens that causes them to lash out. A divorce, losing custody of their child, right? Losing the ability to adopt a child, all of that can make them kind of snatch that mask off and just be who they really are, Let me also say briefly before I go to the chat box that there's often a lot of chaos in childhood with these kind of mothers. If you look back over your mom's past in history, as I have done with my own mom, my mom, thank God, has been the best mom ever. And that's exactly why I try to be the best daughter ever and support her, because she has supported me and my siblings for so many years, So I was blessed to have a really good mom, but I still at times take an outsider's view of my mom. At least I tried to. And her relationship with her own mom, because my mom saw the movie Mommy Dearest back when she was 20 something, and she related my grandmother to the role of Crawford. And so I remember asking my mom as a young adolescent, I was like 12 and a half, 13. I says, Mom, what is this movie? She's watching it, and she says, oh, this movie is Mommy Dearest. And I remember sitting on the floor, my mom's on the couch, and we're watching this movie. And I looked at my mom, I'm like, Mom, this is unbelievable. And my mom says, believe it or not, this is what I see Mama as. And she was talking about my guy, my grandmother. And I said, really? And she says to me, yeah, because when she used to drink alcohol, she would turn into the Tasmanian devil. She would slap me, hit me, call me names, throw me out of the house. My mom expressed that she felt she went through a lot with my grandmother. My grandmother, we love her so dearly. Before she passed in 2020, we miss her. So it's not like she's this horrible devil. But when she was younger and she was addicted to alcohol, she was clearly an alcoholic. Her moods and behaviors changed. And so my mom always related her behaviors to the movie Mommy Dearest. So that's how I got some knowledge about this kind of a character. But you have to keep in mind that there's a lot of chaos at the core. My grandmother had tons of chaos at the core of her family upbringing, and her own father was a quote unquote fallen down alcoholic. He would just drop on the floor and he would just be so drunk, according to the reports that I've had in my family, that he couldn't keep his eyes open. He would just be drunk on the floor. And so my grandmother saw that. So there was a lot of chaos. And even my grandmother's brother was adopted, if you will, by a family member and raised. And it wasn't until she died that I found the adoption papers. And my mom was like, what? Uncle Sam was adopted? Like, everybody was so shocked. But there's chaos. And so it makes sense as to why my grandmother would be like a Mommy Dearest in her younger years. Chaos stirs this kind of character, if you will, right? And on top of chaos, you ready for this, is trauma. So you've got chaos, and then maybe that chaos has caused trauma. And so now you've got two of those things. And so out comes, or born is, the mommy dearest character. You've got poverty, abandonment, abuse, personality pathology. You've got cold mother syndrome. You've got trauma, extreme shifts in mood, and masked mental health challenges. And on top of that, chaos, if I didn't already say that, and trauma. And it's literally like a ladder, right? And all of that made the mommy dearest role. So guys, I'm going to go to the chat box on this point. I do want to get to some of you and make sure that we wrap up at a good enough time. Tonight, I'm going to tell you the common signs of a cold mother so that you can identify what clinically is considered a cold mother. And I also want to go through some things for you on how this impacts you, because there's no way that this cannot impact you. So let me go back to the very top. Bo, hello and welcome. Thank you so much for that. It's good to see you tonight. Dennis Robinson, hello, and good to have you tonight. I hope it will be interesting and insightful. Pink Meadows with all the positivity. Thank you so much for that. Love seeing you. Give it a think. A Force of Living, Jessica J, and Tanisha's Heart Garden. I see your new name. Awesome. Good to see you and welcome back tonight. Happy Mondays. It's good to see you tonight. Welcome back. Mr. Ellipsis. Haven't seen you in a while. So welcome back. What's up, Room and Tam? Yeah, this is my kind of topic, sadly. Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of you can relate to this. I see Jessica J say her mother-in-law. Yeah. MS says, whoops, sorry guys. MS says, excellent topic. Read book and saw movie, but it has been a while. 100% relate to the situation as always. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to get into it. MS. Nancy R, good to see you as well. Dragon Man Sasson, good to see you. And thank you. You want to know? So there's a story behind these earrings. Somebody who has been following me for many years on YouTube and social media, they were so sweet. They sent me these earrings and it came at a time around my birthday a year or two ago. And she was like, keep representing that other half of your blood, right? And so she sent me these earrings. And so I'm like, I'm going to wear these tonight. Okay. So thank you for that. Kyra knows a 14 4K. Good to see you. I just saw you say that you relate to this. I figure most of you would. Yabby, can I say that? Or can I say Yab Yum 25? Hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. Says, mine couldn't acknowledge I was needed a home for my birthday because she didn't believe my vision. Lack of acknowledgement has been my lifelong issue. Yes. Lack of acknowledgement is often part of the cold mother syndrome, and we're not talking about a mother who says, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that I missed this whole piece of your life growing up. That can happen with any parent. We're talking about the clinical problem of, I totally don't have time for you. I don't have time for you. I invalidate you. I push you to the side because you're not important. I want to zone in and pay really good attention to my own life. And I'm sorry if I miss these pieces of the puzzle for you. That's kind of the attitude with these kind of mothers. So, Yum 25. I totally get that. And Jessica J, thank you so much for saying, I knew these earrings would get you guys. It's a woman thing, guys. It's a woman thing. Bossy Truthy 15, good to see you back tonight. Welcome. Nancy R says, I worry about my borderline personality daughter. I worry about my daughter with borderline personality disorder becoming a mom. Yeah, it's awful, right? Some people with borderline personality disorder can have terrible younger years and be excellent older adults. Some people with borderline personality disorder will be rocky and stormy and traumatic all their lives and should never have born a child or adopted a child. You know what I mean? And still, some people with borderline personality disorder struggle until they get the right treatment and until they get the right medication. So, it just depends, Nancy R, on where your daughter kind of fits on that spectrum, Angela Nicoletti, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. And thank you so much for that. That's so nice of you. Thank you. M&L Odell, good to see you tonight. I'm clandestine girl 16X. Hello, and thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. Ellie, Wynn, good to see you. Welcome back. Always good to see you in the chat box. Absolutely diabolical and disturbing. Kyra knows 14 4K says it is. It is. Clandestine girl 16X, excuse me, says so excited for this topic. My mom would fall under this. I think. I appreciate all your videos. Yes, you're welcome. And I wouldn't be surprised. I just shared with you guys that my own mom thought that her mother was a mommy dearest. I think there's more mommy dearest mothers in the world than we care to believe, you know, because again, we want to run with that commercialized Mother Day mentality. And the sad part is there's a small sector of really good moms who will sacrifice and be there and support and love you. And it feels like the bigger picture, though, are the mommy dearest moms. That's kind of the way that I've seen it clinically. G, hello and welcome. Good to see you and welcome to the channel. G says, my mom used to always put that movie on and it used to trigger me so bad because she acted just like the mom and I was adopted like the daughter. Till this day, I can't watch the movie. I totally understand. If you sit down and watch the movie, again, I think I may have said this earlier, and if you're coming in without an outside perspective, it just looks like a really controlling mother that is a little bit high strung. But when you know what the movie signifies, it does trigger you, right? And it even triggers me. You know, there's a scene that is stuck in my mind. And it's the scene where the mother is being very cold-hearted to the adopted daughter. And the mother is dressed nicely. Her hair is curled really nicely. She's got this long gown on, or maybe it was a nightgown, I think, and a robe. But she dressed like she wanted to be in Hollywood on a stage all the time. And she noticed that there were hangers around and none of the clothes were cleaned up off the floor or something like that. And she just went bonkers, if you will, for lack of a clinical term. And she started throwing clothes and screaming and crying and snatching hangers down, you know. And the adopted child, who was an adolescent in this scene, she just sat there in amazement. And then, if I'm remembering correctly, she was crying and shaking and she couldn't understand, why are you in my room tearing things from limb to limb? And why are you doing this in the middle of the night? This was around bedtime in the movie. And so that part of the movie stuck with me because this is a mother that has very poor regulation of her emotions. And as you'll see in a little bit here, that just perpetuates trauma down to you, you know, but because there's no self-control, there's no regulation. And she couldn't even pump the brakes in her mind. You know, don't get upset, tell her to clean it up tomorrow. You know, she didn't have that capability. She was really a mother, adopted mother, that really seemed to have, maybe I'll put it this way, a personality pathology at the core of her behaviors. And it's very likely that she could have been a narcissist. She fits all the characteristics of a narcissist, you know? And she also fits the characteristics of what we call obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Obsessive compulsive personality disorder. And that's this overly tense fixation on organization, cleanliness, scheduling, you know, running daily life. It can be a prison. Minimally Leah, hello, good to see you. And yeah, so good that you can catch a live chat. I rarely see you anymore on YouTube, so it's good to see you when you can join us. Andreas Seuss, hopefully I said that correctly. Welcome, good to see you tonight. I'm not sure what you mean by how is it fixed, so maybe clarify that for me, and I'm happy to answer that. I don't know what that means. Lears. Oh, I messed that up. Crivers. I'm not sure what that means, but hello and welcome. I may be misinterpreting that. Oh, thank you. Angela Nicoletti, thank you for that. Joan Crawford and Diana Scarwood. Hopefully I'm saying her name correctly. I appreciate you for putting that up there. Jessica J, she's like having a picnic at home. The Good Glow. Hello and welcome. Always good to see you. The Good Glow says, this is the epitome of my mother, Dearest. Yeah. Detached. Yep. Nurtures and downright unemotionally available. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And kind of like, the mommy in the movie Mommy Dearest, uh, she may have had so much focus on how she wanted to be in life, the class level she wanted to be on, because she did have roots of poverty. She was abandoned by her stepfather and sexually abused. I don't know if you guys know that history. She had a very chaotic childhood. And so every part of the movie kind of showed that she had this internalized fixation, almost like an obsession on being the superstar, And those kind of parents don't have room for you because they are too busy trying to cater to voids that they should have long have gotten over, And especially when that child came into their lives, they don't have the capacity to say, I've got this person that's relying on me. Forget the wounds that I am carrying right now because I have to bring this one up and I have to care for this person. They don't have room to say that. They don't have room to say that because they are too focused on their internal wounded child. We can call it that. Their internal wounded child. It's very sad. Matt Madison or Matt Madikin. I hope I said that correctly. Hello and welcome to the channel. Good to see you. Matt Madikin says, sounds like a personal problem was mine. Yeah, maybe so. Q Quote Award 01. Hello and welcome. I was glad to see you in the chat box. All right, we're going to keep moving, guys. Stacy Del Buccia. I hope I said that correctly. God bless you as well. Thank you for always tuning in. Good to see you. Let me go back to Matt Madikin for a second here. He says, you don't even realize you are in a battle sometimes. That is very, very true. You don't realize you're in a battle. And there's many reasons, but I think the bigger reason for that, Matt Madikin, is we never suspect mothers, right? And so if we don't suspect mothers, why would we think we're in a battle, right? And even if there's, and I have a lot of adolescents who are going through this, a little at a time as you become an adolescent, you go through a process known as individuation. And that's a very natural and healthy process where you've always been like this with the family until you hit 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And now guess what you're doing? You're saying, okay, Pat, I'm done holding on to you. So I'm going to separate. And I'm going to separate some more, and I'm going to separate some more, and I'm going to have my own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, my own observations, my own job. I'm going to pay my own bills. I'm going to go to school or not go to school, right? So individuation is, I've been so attached to my family up until a certain point, and now I'm pulling away from my family so that I can kind of have this individual perception of reality, and I don't have to be kind of tainted by everybody else's view in the family. Once you start that process of individuation, which is a very natural process that happens in adolescence, that is the process where you start to realize, because you can kind of step back and observe, you begin to realize that, oh my God, I'm in a battle, right, Matt? I'm in a battle. My mother is unstable. My dad is unstable, right? And so then life kind of opens up to you in that way as you go through that process of individuation, Okay, still looking for comments. Bear with me, guys. You guys are really talking it up. I love it. Laura Fit, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. Always good to see you. Bossy Truthy 15 says, she says harsh things to hurt me most of the time. It's cursing for no reason, like you will get nowhere. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people feel that their profanity is the best way to express that they're upset. I think it's the worst way to express what's on the inside. Like, I just think profanity does nothing but show people what you're about. You do not have to use profanity to describe how you're feeling. Even in therapy sessions, when I'm dealing with a mommy dearest, and I have a child in the room and the mom starts cursing, the first thing I say is, I don't want to correct you around your child, but I do not permit cursing. We do not need the profanity. The F word, the S word, and the D word does not necessarily describe how you're feeling. So please use some intellect and describe for me what's happening without the profanity. And, I already know that mom's probably not going to come back and see me. But I just think it's kind of like this warped thinking that profanity kind of gets your point across and it lets people know how mad you are. No, it really doesn't. I don't think it does. So, Bossy Truthy 15, I think sometimes the cursing is like a smoke screen. I'm tough, I'm bad, I'm mad, I'm letting you know how I really feel. And that's not really letting me know how you really feel, but some people use it and it sounds like it was used kind of against you, and that's a sad thing. Wow. From Conspiracy to Christ. Hello and welcome. That screen name makes me just want to be quiet and process what that means. Good to see you and welcome to the channel. You say, all I can think of is no wire hangers. Oh yeah, right? Did she, and this is just a disclaimer, guys. I'm not going to get into the meats of what happened in that movie, but I am going to give you the knowledge surrounding the personality. But I do want to ask you guys this. Did she hit the adopted daughter with the wire hangers? I can't remember that part of the scene, but it's painful. I had a father years ago that told me he beats his son with wire hangers. He beats his son with plastic hangers. He beats his son with a belt. An extension cord is another thing. And I just sat there like, hey, keep talking because you're going straight to CYF as soon as we end this session. And the sad part about it is he didn't realize that he was engaging in and perpetuating abuse because that same thing happened to him. It's like an ugly generational curse that sits upon the family when you have a mommy dearest, and it just perpetuates chaos for years if you're not careful. Jessica J says that movie is hard to watch. I was terrified the first time I saw it. Yeah, I was too. Like I said, I was probably like 12, 13. I'm like, what is this? I honestly, I think that movie disturbed me a little more than The Exorcist. I'm going to tell you that. The Exorcist was kind of like, okay, this is about things you really can't see, spiritual things. That was my mind at the time. But being that my mom referred to my grandmother as a mommy dearest, that scared me more, Awesome. Hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. We're going to go back to the content here in a second. Mapia Natu, I'm going to say it that way. Oh my goodness, love from Greece. Oh, I so want to go there one day. Welcome. Good to have you on the channel. I so want to visit Greece at some point. I do. I've been to Canada. I've been to Bogota, Colombia, Hawaii, and that's it. And now I'm looking to go to Greece, okay? Before my time upon the earth is over. Thank you, Matt. She is amazing. Thank you. And that's a blessing because my mom didn't have the best mom, and she could have turned out to be very abusive, but she made it her goal. She told me many years ago to be a different kind of mom, Thank you for that, Matt. I appreciate you. M and L Odell, you're my last one before I get into the content again. Let me try this again, guys. M&L Odell says, sad as it is many who were raised in the 40s and 50s were raised by mommy dearest types. Yeah, I very much agree. And I wonder if that's because we had such a warped idea of mothers and children and discipline and parenting styles. Who knows? But let's jump back into the content. Okay, guys, what are the common signs? What are the common signs of a mommy dearest kind of a mom? The number one thing that underlies the foundation or kind of found beneath the surface of the movie and the book is a narcissistic disposition that's rooted in childhood. Now, you may be wondering, can a child be a sociopath? Can a child be a narcissist? They can very much display the symptoms, behaviors, mindsets, and attitudes of a narcissist, of a sociopath over time, depending on what their upbringing was. So what's kind of hidden beneath the surface of the movie Mommy Dearest is narcissism rooted in childhood. It started then. It started with her chaos in childhood. It started with the abuse as a child from her stepfather. It also started as feelings of abandonment, and kind of having this constant power struggle between she and her own parents. It caused her to think of herself in a certain way, to desire to be something, which was a famous Hollywood star, actress, or singer, whatever she was or wanted to be. And in her mind, she kind of had this constant fantasy going, that she was worthy of being on a high platform. It was almost like she had this attitude of, I'm going to be a star. And when I become a star, it's going to be way overdue, because I should have been a star years ago. That was kind of her mentality and her disposition. And so narcissism can be rooted in childhood. You can't be diagnosed with it as a child. Narcissism, antisocial personality, but you can start at one place in childhood and continue to develop that narcissistic mindset over time. And when you hit 18, when that mother hits 18, the narcissistic tendencies may worsen. They may become more noticeable, and the individual, as they grow in their adult life, can become more of a narcissist. So it's a very depressing concept, but it can be rooted in childhood. The other thing is having a troubled childhood. We know, according to Sigmund Freud, that most trauma and challenges happen in childhood. And so cold mother syndrome, those kind of mothers that fit that description, the Mommy Dearest types, they've all had troubled childhoods. They also have kind of like this internalized perfectionism. I don't necessarily want to provide therapy to a cold, callous, emotionally distant mother because it's going to trigger me. I'm going to get mad. I'm going to be sad for the child. I'm going to worry, because these kind of moms, they're high strung. They're emotionally reactive. They're very perfectionistic. You have to look this way. You have to be this way. Why is your hair out of place? Didn't I tell you to take that off? Don't wear those socks. Change that shirt. That's not for you. Oh, that red shirt does not help your complexion. Go change. Right? Or don't wear that ball cap. It makes you look fat. Or I think you have too much makeup on. You really need to take some of that off. That kind of need for perfection and that unemotional criticism is just harsh. It breaks you down over time. And sometimes it becomes a broken track record in your mind, right? Because all you ever heard is criticisms. That's different from a parent providing constructive criticism. But those parents who are very, they criticize a lot. That's the word I'm looking for. They most likely have problems at the core, which is why they're like that. There's also, I mentioned earlier, OCPD, so obsessive compulsive personality disorder, needing everything to be clean, right? Needing everything to be organized and in order, because without that, they feel kind of out of touch and confused. There's also this internal wounded child. That's what this mother was, the adopted mother. She had a inner wounded child, and it was never reparented. It was never healed. So she took her chaos from childhood and brought it into the adopted relationship between she and the child that she adopted. And it was a horrific journey. Why? Because she had a wounded internal child that she couldn't deal with. She just couldn't get over it, There's also this deep-seated need for control with these kind of moms. Research in psychology suggests that the Mommy Dearest types, they have to be behind the wheel, and they may be helicopter moms, right? They may helicopter, even if you are an adult. They still want to know where you are. They still want to ask you questions about your relationship. They want you to openly talk to them, and they press on you for that. Some other examples could be you're your mother's therapist, right? She calls you to complain and to vent, but she never hears you emotionally and psychologically and verbally hears you, because she's so busy about her own life, right? So the roles are changed. So that would be a role reversal. There's a lot of that in these kind of moms. There's also this fight for unrealistic status. And this was the mom in the movie Mommy Dearest. She wanted to be a Hollywood star at the top, and so it's this very unrealistic, I want to be a star kind of mentality. That may not be with every Mommy Dearest, right? Because some want to be a Hollywood model. Others may want to dominate in the community and make some changes and have their name written on posters because they're running for mayor. Other Mommy Dearest mother types may just be the queen of the PTA meetings and, goes to church and provides, Bible study, helps the pastor or the bishop or the father, right? And so it could be any of that. Any kind of spotlight is enough for these kind of parents. That's how insecure they really are. They are really like a ticking time bomb. They're unstable. They're emotionally disjointed. They're misaligned with reality. They don't realize that they are in a fantasy half the time. And they have no ability to emotionally connect to their child. It's just gone. It's not there. Let me also say chronic and emotional abuse, sexual abuse is in there as well. And, there may be some elements of exploitation and triangulation as well. This is basically the characters, the criteria of a cold mother, of a Mommy Dearest type, Let me also say there's this concept called refrigerator mothers. Have you guys heard of this? Refrigerated mothers is not necessarily cold mother syndrome. Remember, cold mother syndrome is being emotionally detached and immature. There's no connection between you and the parent, and they tend to foster this insecure attachment. So these insecurities within you of how relationships are to operate in a healthy way. So that's cold mother syndrome. Refrigerator mothers is another term. It was practically condemned and thrown out because refrigerated moms, or refrigerator mothers, if you will, they were blamed. Cold-hearted, callous, Mommy Dearest type moms were blamed for the development of autism in their children. And so at that particular time, I want to say the 1950s or 1960s, refrigerator mother came out as a term. And it was used to describe these cold-hearted, unemotional mothers who never engaged with their children, and they caused an autism spectrum disorder as a result. That whole concept is thrown out the window. But I do want to pull from this concept of refrigerated mothers and say refrigerator mothers and say that it's really not that absurd. It may not cause autism, but it can definitely cause complex PTSD. It can cause actual PTSD. It can cause borderline personality disorder and fear of abandonment, right? And it can also cause a series of unhealthy and poor attachment styles. May not be autism, but it definitely can cause other things, Let me also say this before we go back to the chat box, and then I give you what the impact is. Let me throw this in here. There's a term known as family disintegration. And family disintegration is this. It's kind of like that process that's normal, or it can be a traumatic process where something shifts in the family in such a way that everybody has to kind of reorganize and figure out where everybody needs to be. It's kind of like role conflict. Dad left, now mom wants me to be the husband, right? Or mom wants to make me the parentified child, or my mom is forcing me to grow up and be an adult really fast without considering that I'm still a child. So family disintegration can happen. And it's when there's a shift in the family dynamic. There's been a divorce, there's been a death or a loss, there's been, separation, there's been domestic violence. It's any situation that shifts the dynamic of the family. And so Mommy Dearest types often have at the core of their chaotic families, family disintegration. Family disintegration. Something has gotten in the way of the healthy progression of the family. It's all chaos. And that's all the Mommy Dearest parent knows, All right, guys, let me go back to the chat box, engage you guys just a little bit. And then I'm going to give you how this impacts you. And then we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I think we're doing pretty good on time tonight, guys. What do you think? Jeremy Robinson, good to see you tonight. Welcome back. Okay. What happened was, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. Yeah. I don't blame you. And you also say overwhelming grief. Yes, very much so. I very much agree. Rochella, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Okay, bear with me, guys. From conspiracy to Karai says, I have a lot of confusion when it comes to my mom and what is wrong with her. Absolutely. It's hard. Let me take the burden off your shoulders in case you have it, that you can't figure out your mother. If you can't figure out your mother, don't feel bad, because here's the thing. The natural order of things is this, that a mother is not really there to be understood by the child, is she? The parent has made the decision, whether that was an unintentional decision or an intentional one, to have a child, to bring that child here, right? And then to raise it. And so as you're being raised and taken care of, your job is just to be a child. And so you're not here to understand your mom, you know? And so once you become an adult, you may want to take on the task of understanding your mom's behaviors, but it is very difficult. Why? Because you're not here to try to understand her, and she's taking care of you. At least I think she has for many years. And so it's hard to turn and look at your caretaker and say, wait a minute, what's wrong here? You know, it can be so close that it's hard for you to figure it out. You may go to a therapist's office and they get it just like that, you know? Okay. Jeremy Robinson says, my mom is definitely mommy dearest, and she grew up in a house she grew up in a house who was like that. I remember when she told me a story about how her grandmother assaulted her because she tried to teach my sister. Wow. Yeah. Jeremy Robinson, it's a generational thing. It's a generational thing, you know? Yeah. Oh, she tried to teach her sister how to use the bathroom. Yep. That's typical. Think of obsessive compulsive personality disorder. It's a very rigid, I have to do things this way. So let's say that was the case for you, Jeremy Robinson, where, you know, she was very high strung and perfectionistic and, you know, had this obsessive compulsive personality issue. It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense as to why she would just kind of feel like, I don't need you teaching her. I'm going to teach her, right? That's that obsessive part of obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Yeah. Kate M, hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. Kip Nilsson, hello and welcome. Yes, they are. Thank you so much. Aren't they a beautiful gift? I agree. Rochella says, so many new people in this chat. So happy for your growth, Miss Tamara. Thank you so much for that. It's such a blessing, and you guys have made that happen. And so I'm really glad to see some new people. I really am. It's amazing. Again, we are the fastest growing YouTube channel that does live chats every single weekend. And it's not just me, it's you guys too. So thank you. Matt Madikin says, but love you so much. Oh, Sometimes that parent will throw that up. Is that what you mean? They will throw that up. But I love you. I'm your mother. Why would I do such a thing? You know, and I've had parents in therapy with me that say things like that, you know, I'm your mother. Why would I be this way? Years ago, I had a young lady. She was a lovely girl, you know, not just beautiful. She was a model, so to speak. She was just beautiful and had the height to be a model, had the build to be a model, but what was most beautiful about this young lady, she was 15, was her heart, her mind, and her soul. And I told her, if you never become a model, you've got to do something like become a doctor, you know, become a lawyer and change the way things are, you know, become a therapist, you know. So we would joke about that all the time. So one session, she brought her mom in, and she said to her mom, I know you're trying your very best, and I'm trying to do good in school so I can go on to college. She says, Mom, but there are some times you ask me to do so much that I feel parentified. I feel like you're trying to make me an adult. And she says to her mom, but I feel like you don't see me as a child anymore. You think that because I'm 15 that I'm self-sufficient. And the mother, I could instantly see she was getting offended. And instead of saying to her daughter, No, my dear, this is not what I want you to think. I'm relying on you because you're the oldest, you're smart, you're wise, you're mature, but I do not want you to be burdened. Instead of mom taking that disposition, she literally moved her body away from on the couch, away from her daughter, crossed her leg away from her daughter, okay, crossed her arms and sat there pouting for the next 30 minutes of the session until I told her, suck it up. You know, I know that you're probably hurt, right? But I think this young lady has really given you a humble, modest mom, I need you. And the least you can do is comfort her, you know? And this mother says, but how dare she say those things? Because I'm not that kind of a mother. I love my children. I provide for them all the time. I have several jobs because I want to take care of them. And that's kind of like that mommy dearest attitude as well, right, guys? It's like, I am burdened with trying to care for you, okay? And you're kind of in my way. I don't intend to be harassed by you or told the truth to. Suck it up, keep growing as a child, and do what I tell you. That's all I want from you. Do what I tell you, you know? And that's a mommy dearest disposition as well. The crossing her leg, folding her arms, and leaning against her daughter was exactly what I needed to see what the problem of that case was, you know? And it was the mother. It was the mother. I would say she's a mommy dearest type. She put her kids on everybody else. She just wanted to work and have a job and look good and be cute, you know? And she was very emotionally unstable. And that impacted, that 15-year-old for many years, Regina Myers, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. Yes, hope everything is okay with you. So far, so good. So far, so good for me, Regina Myers. Thanks for asking. Or thanks for saying. Bear with me, guys. I'm looking for more comments. Yeah, Stacy Del Buccia says, it is a very intense movie. Mommy Dearest. Yes, it is. Yeah. Drunken Rage. Yep. Kyra knows, points that out. Yep. Those are the worst. Yep. What Happened Was, says Vengeful. Yep. From Conspiracy to Christ. She was so vain. Yes. Vanity is a part of that as well. It's okay to appreciate your attractiveness. It's okay to look at other people and say you're beautiful, you're handsome, right? It's okay to get compliments. But when your mind only thinks of thyself and how you look to other people, that is a problem, right? And that was really the mommy dearest kind of disposition in that movie, right? Like she wanted to be gorgeous. She wanted to be, well respected by everybody on the outside. Again, it's okay to have a healthy, you know what? I look pretty good today. Yep. Leave that mirror and let's move on to other things in life because you're really not that cute. I mean, there are some people who really hang on to their looks, very narcissistically. I just made a new word. And that gets in the way of them being good parents. Can you believe that? I've had it in many years of providing counseling, and it's just despicable. It's like you can't get your mind off of how cute you think you are just to be here for your children. Like this is despicable. What is this? But from Conspiracy to Christ, yes, it is vanity, and sometimes that gets in the way as well. I agree. It's despicable. I don't know how that even happens. Some people think it's a deep-seated need for attention and admiration. Other people think it's a narcissistic, you're blown up in your mind. I just don't know. But if your mind stays on yourself and how cute you think you are and handsome you are, that is a very, very bad place to be, because nothing else matters to you. What happened was, I'm also going to put this up here. You said psychotic rage. Absolutely. Relationships nursing. Hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. And welcome to the channel. I don't remember seeing you before. Sylvie says, good evening, Tamara. Hope you are doing well. Thank you so much. Good evening to you. Doing okay. Thank God this week. Hope you're doing okay. I feel like I needed to put a disclaimer on this chat too, guys. Hanifa El Amin says, hello and welcome to the chat. By the way, always good to see you. She says, raised by malignant mom, and she taught me nothing. I hurt my children. I have lived with such shame and guilt. Today I am a loving, compassionate person. But did you complete that, Hanifa? Did you complete that? No? Ooh. Okay, I don't see the other piece of that, and it's probably me. I'm just going to comment on what you say. That you were raised by a malignant mother, a narcissistic mom, and she taught you nothing. Yeah. How can she, right? Remember a couple of minutes ago, I was just saying, some of these moms who are cold and callous, they're focused on how wonderfully attractive they think they are. And again, it's okay to appreciate who you are, but then there's a limit to that. You know what I mean? And so some moms are so wrapped up in their own world of, I'm so pretty, or I'm so attractive, or I have good sex appeal, that it takes away from the relationship between that mother and that child. And so it doesn't really shock me that she was a malignant narcissist. And it also doesn't shock me that she taught you absolutely nothing, right? Those kind of moms don't have room to teach you anything because they're too focused on me, myself, and I, It's despicable. Thank you so much for that. I know. I just want to go to Greece. You know what I mean? I'm so busy though. It's like I can't get away. I can't go to the bathroom half the time, okay? Because there's like client after client after client after client. I'm not going to ever be able to go to Greece. I have to wait till I retire. You know what I mean? Clandestine Girl 16X, thank you so much for becoming a member tonight. I love you so much. You're always so kind and resourceful and engaging on the channel. So I'm really glad that you decided to become a member. Good to have you. Okay, Dawn 1, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. It's good to see you. Okay, bear with me, guys. Okay, this is going to be hard for me to read, and you look like my childhood friend that I had. We were like sisters. We were so close. That's scary. You look so much like her. Can't make out the screen name, but you do say, and I'm going to say welcome to you. Good to see you tonight. And welcome to the channel, because I don't remember seeing you. But you go on and say, I cannot focus on healing from my narc mom's trauma as a daughter at all, because when I delve into that process, I become vulnerable, and my academics pressure just becomes worse. And I gotcha. Okay. I got you. That's why sometimes it's better, to focus on your own healing in a time in your life, if you can, when you have less stress, right? Because trying to balance school, trying to balance getting up every day and just being a functional human being, and trying to balance the vulnerability of your childhood and what's going on the inside of you can really be a burden, right? It can become a burden in such a way that your school goes lacking, right? Your confidence goes down. You become insecure. You become fearful, sometimes even paranoid. When I was in college, I had, my class, those of us who were graduating and in the same program and graduating at the same time, I was able to see that some of them had schizophrenia. I had a friend on campus who had a psychotic break. Somebody else was violated physically and emotionally. And so I remember looking at them thinking, you're going to have to either pause college, have some kind of academic leave so that you can deal with the intense emotions. You know what I mean? So hopefully that validated your perspective. You may want to watch, you know what I mean? And kind of weigh what's best here. Do I work on my healing, or do I get my degree first? You know what I mean? So I totally get it. Yeah, Jessica J says, this may not have anything to do with the discussion. It very much does, Jessica J. She goes on to say, how do you reparent yourself? I did a live chat on reparenting yourself a couple months ago, and I think I have a video on that. If you want me to do a live chat on reparenting yourself from the mommy dearest kind of a mother, we can talk about that as well. But in a nutshell, reparenting yourself is identifying those broken pieces of who you are. What's those voids? What's those holes? What are those holes that kind of keeps me stuck emotionally? And how do I pedal upstream so that I'm not sinking. You know what I mean? And how do I accept myself? How do I have healthy relationships? How do I, push myself forward? What's my self-talk? Is it positive or negative? So those are kind of, Jessica J, like the first pieces of reparenting yourself. Really what you're doing in the reparenting process is you're saying, you didn't help me, you didn't mold me, you caused trauma. But in my adulthood, I'm going to cater to my needs. I'm going to learn about who I am. I'm going to develop and maintain my self identity. I'm going to put people out of my life who don't belong. I'm going to protect my peace. All of that is reparenting. It's really putting band-aids, if you will, over wounds that parent caused you. I hope that makes sense, Jessica J. And it's very relevant to tonight's conversation. Kev Dower, good to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing okay. Good to see you. Cam, hello and welcome. Good to see you. Thank you, G. That's what I thought. I wasn't sure. Thank you for confirming that. Danita Minor, hello. I thought so. Thank you for confirming that. It's awful. It's awful. I just think it's horrific. Yeah. Hanifa El Amin says, my mom would occasionally use an extension cord. Yeah, I hate that. I hate that so much. And Nancy R, I think you said hangers as well for you. It's deplorable. It is deplorable. For a parent to think that I'm just going to slap you or I'm going to punch you. I have a client, and I'm going to keep this as confidential as possible, who is dealing with a situation like this where, her mother literally gets into fistfights with her. And my client, I've called CYF on this family multiple times. But this young lady, she's like, I feel like I have to defend myself now because now my mom is trying to punch me and kick me and fight me like I'm some woman on the street, And I just think it's absolutely deplorable, for lack of a clinical term, that a parent physically assaults their child because it starts to feel like assault. You're hitting me with hangers, you're hitting me with extension cords, you're calling me out of my name, you're yelling and screaming at me, you're trying to punch and kick me. Like, what is left, right? It's like that parent does all of that. What's left to the relationship? Because your trust has been broken, trauma has been created, right? And the mother is lacking. Really, Tamara? Mother is lacking in a lot of different ways. And it's really hard to help that parent be a better parent, but I hate the extension cord thing. I hate that. And I also hate belts. I get it, but I don't like it. I just think that if you can understand your child, you can figure out how to raise them and love them and guide them. You have to be really creative. And some parents, like this mommy dearest type, they don't have the patience for that. They don't have the bandwidth for that. They don't have the emotional stability for that. So what do? They just lash out and hit you with something, So it's horrible. It stays with you for a very, very long time. Q Code Award says, imagine sitting there watching this movie as a child and trying to hold back your tears because you are going through and you can empathize with that child. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I hate to say it, but I do praise adopted families. I have adopted families that work with me. I have their kids. I just had one that saw me earlier in the week, and I love that family. We laugh together, we talk together, we agree on the same things, we have the same values. You can literally feel us like this in the therapeutic relationship because we get along so well. Then I have another family who's a loving, sweet family, and they have adopted a child as well. And I have several of those families. And I think it's a beautiful, wonderful thing to have these loving, close families, especially when the child is adopted. But here's what scares me, and Q Code Award, this is why I'm bringing this up. It's really hard for children who are in the adoption system and foster system to find that kind of a mother that's a loving, caring mother. A lot of times they get into households where there's a mommy dearest kind of a mom. You know what I mean? And it's really hard. It makes you, as you say, Q Code Award, it breaks your heart, right? Because you can kind of relate, especially if you've had somebody like this in your family or your own parent, Okay, one more comment, guys. And then I'm going to go back to the content so we can wrap up. Don One says, out of the whole world, I'm so glad that we have you, Tamara. Oh my God, I didn't know that was for me. I thought you were commenting on something else. Thank you. That's so loving. I appreciate you. And I'm glad I have you guys. It's so sweet. You guys are an awesome community, which is why YouTube recognized you guys. So I'm going to throw it out there as much as I can because it's true. Lauren H, hello and welcome. Good to have you in tonight's live chat. Lauren H says, how to navigate healing of long repressed, unprocessed emotions. Ooh, that's a whole new live chat. Okay. If you guys want me to talk about it, just let me know. I can pull together the clinical research and my clinical experience of that. Long repressed, unprocessed emotions. That's going to be a pretty extensive live chat. I'm going to have to go to bed early for that one. Tammy Nicely, good to see you. Welcome back. Tammy Nicely says, hey, Tammy and family. Just tuned in. Hope all is well. I was beaten with whatever was visible, including a telephone wire. I hate that too. I've heard of that. And net curtain wire. Oh, come on. I hate that too. I've heard of that in sessions. She goes on to say it left welts all over. She mainly left marks in the, God, what is PTO? Somebody help me with that. Somebody help me with that. For those who have been with me for a long time, you know that I'm bad with acronyms. I only know a couple of acronyms, okay, guys? And LOL is at the top of the list. So somebody help me with PTO. What the heck is PTO? I don't know. I can't even pull it together. Somebody help me here. Okay, but Tammy Nicely, for one, that is an awful thing to do. We know that when it comes to child protective services, that's really what they're looking for. So if I go online and I have a portal that I have an account name with, and that portal is my state's portal for reporting child abuse and child neglect. And so once I get into that portal, the first question, well, number one, I got to get all my information in there and the child's information. But I also have to get into that portal on the third page, physical marks. And thankfully, I've only had to document 2 cases in my 16 years of being a therapist where there's physical evidence of abuse, welts, bruises, broken bones. You know, one kid came to me and couldn't ball his fist, couldn't ball his fist. And you could literally see the bone in his finger kind of sticking up. And I said, we're going to have to call an ambulance to come and get you. You have to go to the hospital. Your finger is broken, you know, and that's because his drunken mother was harmful. And when she was drunk, she fell on top of him and he's trying to brace her so they don't both end up on the floor. She had to be about 200 and something pounds. And it like kind of twisted his finger a certain way. So it's just sad, right? When a parent leaves the damage behind. And so Tammy Nicely, it's one thing to be an abusive parent, right? It's another when you're abusive and you leave the evidence on your child. That is traumatizing for me. It's traumatizing for you guys, I'm sure. And it just sticks with you for a long time, doesn't it? It's awful. How does this kind of mother impact you? Well, clinical research studies on cold mothers and fathers, but for this discussion, we're just focusing on the cold mothers. Clinical studies suggest this, and I've seen this, that there's often emotion dysregulation that you experience. That emotion dysregulation that you experience is not your fault. It's not, I'm not smart enough to control my emotions. It's not, I'm psychologically damaged, I can't control my emotions. It's not, I'm failing to control my emotions. Research in psychology suggests that the parent is the number one person to help a child learn emotion regulation. And if you grow up in a household and you're now an adult and you still have a relationship with your mother who is very dysfunctional or toxic, it's possible that your emotion dysregulation is the fault of the parent because of what research says. If a parent cannot be a co-regulator of emotion, You know how there's a problem. You know how parents will sometimes run to the rescue of their child if the child falls, if the child bends over and bumps their head on something, if a child doesn't get something right and the child gets upset and just emotional about it, right? Parents are often the first ones to just run and grab the child and hug the child. I've also seen parents, kind of hold the spot tightly of where the pain is, if the child hit their head or whatever. If it's emotional pain, parents will just squeeze their kids and hug them really tight and say it's going to be okay, right? All of those are examples of co-regulation of emotions. And when you don't have that kind of a mother, it's possible that you become emotionally dysregulated over time. Your parent is a partner when you're young and as you're growing up. And so their ability to help you regulate your emotions teaches you over time how to regulate your own emotions. So that's the number one big point here in this whole conversation, that if you don't have that kind of a mother, you're likely to suffer with emotion dysregulation. The other thing is difficulty trusting your own view of reality, your own view of yourself, your own view of the world. You have a mommy dearest kind of a mother. She's critical, she's cold, she's manipulative, she's mean, she's evil, right? She does things that perplexes and confuses your mind. And if that's in a repetition, right, it's something that happens repeatedly over time, it can kind of seep into your consciousness. And that may mean that you have a hard time trusting your own perception of yourself in reality. Why would you trust your own eyes when your mommy dearest kind of a mother is dominating and domineering and stands on top of you all the time, doesn't give you a chance to process, doesn't give you a chance to work your own intelligence, right? There may also be a cognitive dissonance that's at play here. My mom can be nice sometimes, and she doesn't really fit the description of the woman who played mommy dearest, but she's also abusive and mean. So how do I marry those two things, right? How do I get them to fit? And so cognitive dissonance, guys, this, it sets in. It's hard for you to hold two visions of your mother in that way. So what do? You kind of drop one and you say, you know what, I'm just going to cling to the good side of my mom, or you say, I can't tolerate this discomfort in my mind about who my mom is. So I'm just going to check out because I can't figure it out, So cognitive dissonance. There's also poor perception and memory. That's something that can stick with you for a very long time. Poor perception and memory. All of you just about on the channel, well, most of you, I should say, on the channel has shared with me, those of you I've had the opportunity to do consultations with, you have said to me that I don't remember my childhood. And I'll ask you, do you remember anything? And some of you have told me not a thing. Well, that is typical when you're dealing with a mommy dearest kind of a mom. A mommy dearest invalidates your experience. So it's really hard to have things kind of stick in your mind when you've got this unstable mom who's all around you, acting out, causing trouble, being an emotional storm in your life, right? Calling names, pitting people against each other, being manipulative, hurting you, harming you. All of that kind of throws you off balance. So of course you wouldn't remember things, There's also a lack of mirroring and validation. There's a lack of mirroring and validation. Mirroring is a parent's ability to mirror the emotions and the nonverbal communication of the child, right? So, there may be a mom who smiles at the baby and the baby smiles at mom and then mom smiles back at the baby, right? So what's happening there? Mirroring. We call those mirror neurons. We kind of automatically mirror the other person's emotion and thoughts and behaviors. But that doesn't always happen when you have a mommy dearest mom, right? Because that mother's too busy over there, like I said earlier, thinking she's beautiful and lovely, being too stuck up, having her attention on other things like being famous or dating or partying, right? All of those things creates this void within you, right? Because there's no mirroring, there's no feedback, there's no comfort. The other thing is moderate to severe attention seeking some people go through. So what I mean by moderate to severe attention seeking is I think most people, they appreciate attention in its place and in its time. But sometimes threats of suicide can happen because you need the attention. Sometimes self-harm can happen because the attention is needed. Sometimes You may threaten to go no contact because you need to see that your mom is reacting to you leaving in an emotional way, right? It kind of reinforces that mom does love me after all. So that can happen in some cases. There's also increased vulnerability of mental health challenges. Research in psychology suggests that if you have a mommy dearest mom and you have a very unstable father, right, it's likely that you can grow up with similar vulnerabilities. So depression, anxiety, OCD, personality disorders. That's just how it goes. And you may repeat patterns of abuse from your relationship with your mommy dearest mother in your romantic relationships, in your job relationships, right? Even in your career. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on. You could be such an observer of your mommy dearest mother that you begin to take on certain things, or you fall into patterns of behavior that can get you stuck there, you know? And get this is the last piece of the puzzle here, is faster cellular aging can also happen when you are living under intense emotional distress. So you can age faster, right? Faster cellular aging can happen, which can lead to diseases, right? Multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome. Sometimes certain heart conditions can happen as well. Like your body, the physiological piece of who you are, can suffer if you've lived under the burden of a mommy dearest kind of a parent. This is a lot, right, guys? Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about something very similar, which is, you know, the toxic family dynamic and the inability for those toxic family members to take responsibility for how they have negatively impacted you, how they have negatively impacted other people in their family. So you may want to come back and chat with me tomorrow, because we're going to talk about the difficulty of accountability with these kind of family members. But this is a lot, right, guys? It's emotional, it's dark, it's depressing. It's not a topic that I enjoy having because it's so raw. And so many people say, that's my mother, you know? It kind of contrasts that whole positive Mother's Day kind of attitude that the world puts out there, doesn't it? Yeah. All right. I'm going to go to the chat box and you know, process some things with you guys. And then we're going to go ahead and wrap up, because I'm starting to lose my memory here. That means it's time for me to get off here. Coral Sky, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that's good. You know, what good is it if you can't relate to what I'm saying, right? You know what I mean? Coral Sky. So thank you for letting me know that. Azaria Stacia, I hope I said that correctly. That's a beautiful name. Good to see you and welcome to the channel. And you're right, just constantly cutting us down. Yep. Absolutely. Tammy Nicely, did you become a member? Is that what I'm seeing? No. You said I'm in a challenge place. Oh, I gotcha. But get back to being better. Thank you for asking. Yeah, absolutely. I totally get you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you say definitely healing. That's wonderful. Good. George Young, good to see you back tonight. I don't know if I welcomed you, but welcome back. George Young says she didn't assault her with a hanger. What she did was dragged her into the bathroom. Christina fell to the floor while she's screaming at her to scrub the bathroom floor. Pretty mean. Yeah, but didn't that happen in the scene though? Or did she just like threaten with the hanger? I don't remember. I know it was psychotic, but I don't remember. You may be right, George Young. You may have talked to all of us with this one. Yeah. Yeah, I vaguely remember that scrub the floor thing. You guys know what that's called? We talked about it tonight. Do you remember? Obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Clean those floors. They're not clean enough. You clean the floors. Pick those clothes up in your room. You pick the clothes up. Now go do the dishes. You know, and a parent who's really unstable with an obsessive compulsive personality disorder would be the kind of parent that picks up the dish that you just washed and says, do it again. You missed one spot. That is smudgy. Have you seen those kind of moms? I have. And it's very, very sad. And Angela Nicoletti says, yes, a wounded inner child. The narcs do not change. They think nada is wrong and get worse with age. Sometimes they do get worse with age. Yeah, they do. I agree. Good point. Okay, guys, bear with me as I go through this a little bit more. This is a tough subject. I'm going to be honest with you. I feel a little sad on the inside because it's like, because it's like I've seen so many kids in this position, and sometimes I see it in public too. A couple weeks ago, I was doing some thrifting. My mom and I used to go together before she had her stroke. She's getting back to that, guys. It's just baby steps. So I went thrifting by myself. I dare not take my family members because they're going to drive me cuckoo. So I went thrifting, and I'm kind of enjoying this alone time on a nice cool day, and I'm in the thrift store, and all I hear is, pick the mother effing toy up. The child says, huh? She says, pick the mother effing toy up now. I told you before we came in here, I'm not getting you anything else. And she's going on and on and on. And I'm like cringing, because I'm thinking, why are you the loudest, most ignorant voice in this whole thrift store? You know what I mean? And I could feel the anger rising because this is a child. This child had to be about 5 or 6, and he was the cutest little guy. But mom is she's like this raging, emotionally unstable, angry kind of a mother. And I listened to that until she went to the register and left the store. But soon after that, okay, I got my things rang up, went to my car. As I'm walking to my car, getting ready to put things in the trunk, I'm standing there, and I hear her literally yelling at him from inside the car. She's just screaming at the top of her lungs. And those are the moments where I question, is this a CYF call? Is this a situation where I need to exert my duty to protect this child that's sitting in that car in a parking lot while mom is screaming and cursing like she's an absolute unstable, unhinged animal? Because she was screaming at him like, her anger was disproportionate to the child's behavior, very painful. So this is a very sensitive area, I think, for me, because I have seen this, and it challenges my ethics, my personal values, and my career every time. Miss Janine, good to see you tonight. Welcome. We're getting ready to wrap up literally in a second or two. Miss Janine says, thanks for explaining this so well. You're welcome. Unemotional criticism almost broke me down, and then I realized my health was more important. Yeah. There you go. I like that. I like that a lot. You're putting yourself first. Laura O'Neill, good to see you. Welcome back tonight. Laura says, I haven't been in a while, but I've been diagnosed with breast cancer and have been getting tests and scans nonstop. Please keep me in prayer. Hi to the chat, and love you all. Oh, hi, Laura. Praying for you, definitely. I think, if nothing else, this is a time where everybody's kind of grappling with health conditions. I'm there. My mom's there. Many of my clients are there. Some of my coworkers are there. So don't feel alone. I'll definitely keep you in prayer. You're going to be okay, I think, if I can safely say that. All right, guys, let me just make sure I'm not missing anybody. This might be an educational lesson. Q quote award. You said, after all the abuse I endured, I still love my mother. God kept me in my mind. Wow. That's such a loving place to be. My mom was like that. Yeah. I love that. Guys. Oh, let me say hello to Axe to Edge. Axe to Edge, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. I know I'm really behind in the comment section too. So for those of you that I didn't see tonight, and I didn't get a chance to read your comment, come back and see me tomorrow. You never know. I may get to your comment tomorrow. Just know I see you and I love you. And thank you for everything that you guys do for each other in the chat box. That is why YouTube says we are the fastest growing channel on YouTube that has live chats with a supportive community every single weekend. I'm going to bring it up, guys. I'm going to keep bringing it up so you can see what you're doing for each other on the channel. So thank you so much for that. Guys, I hope you have a wonderful Friday night. I will see you tomorrow. We'll talk some more about this chaotic topic, but I'm going to do it in a little bit of a different way tomorrow. So come join me. Good night, guys. See you tomorrow.